Today's a very, very special day. My name's Ryan Mathis, and I am the director of Gateway Academy in Nashville. I just want to welcome you all, family, friends, teachers and staff, those that are watching virtually and from afar, and most importantly, you seniors. Today is a very special day, and we are celebrating the hard work and dedication and grit of everyone in this room that has led us to this day. Seniors, I want you to look around and really take this in. This is going to be a moment that you may think is just a passing by moment, but it's something that you will always remember. You have been writing a story for the last couple of years, and now you are ending a chapter. And you now have the opportunity to create a path, whatever path that is for you moving forward. Look at it as an adventure. And remember something that I always say: no matter the challenge, the barrier, the experience, or a label that you feel you have felt, that does not define you. It's time to shatter those and carve a path that is truly yours. But as you embark on that path, always remember to lead with integrity, dedication, kindness, empathy, and inclusivity. And as you go on that path, embrace others along the way and empower them to do better and be better. Always remember to use that passion to impact others and initiate change. I can truly say that it has been my honor and privilege to walk alongside these last couple of chapters with you. So congratulations. Now, let's get this party started. It is now my distinct honor to introduce our next speaker. If anyone has ever had the opportunity to meet this young lady, you're going to notice several things. I'm just going to name a few. One, the laughter and positivity is absolutely contagious. She is creative beyond belief, one of the kindest souls that I have ever had the opportunity to work with, and someone whose sarcasm and wit will always keep you on your toes. And not to mention, I thought I was pretty hip, but she reminds me I'm not every now and then. But it is my great, profound privilege to introduce the incomparable Maddie Gibson.
Thank you, Ryan. He's quite a character, isn't he? Hello, my name is Maddie Gibson. This is actually my first time ever giving one of these graduation speeches, and I'm going to admit I'm kind of nervous. After all, I want to try to have, to chase, and I want to chase my dreams and end high school the correct way, and that's how Ryan really helped me out. And really end high school on a high note. In all seriousness, though, I'm glad to be here today and say a few words about my time at school and how it really impacted me. I love Gateway. It's like a family. One of the first people I actually ever met was Penelope Doulis. She really inspired me to be the person I am today, to be a special individual, and she really created this family sort of spectrum for me to accept others, and it was truly amazing. On my first day as well, one of the first teachers I had met was Mr. Tittle. Personally, I think he looks like a mix between Chris Hemsworth and Shaggy from Scooby-Doo. That's why he goes by the nickname Shaggy. But Mr. Tittle, he really taught me to go, to write, to speak my own language, to be inspiring to others. But it was amazing. Students along with me. With this said, over the course of our time together, I came to learn far more, about this community and how to run alongside with others, how to make friends, and all that jazz. Thank you so much.
Good morning. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Marie James. I am the director at the Brentwood campus. And this morning it is my great honor to introduce a friend of Gateway, our commencement speaker today, who is William Hawkridge. Mr. Hawkridge completed his undergraduate studies at Princeton University, followed by earning his MBA with an emphasis in finance at Rutgers. After completing his education, he joined the corporate world, holding positions at J.P. Morgan, Penn Mutual, and later becoming the vice president of Churchill Capital. In 1984, Mr. Hawkridge was the founder of Heritage Equities, where he was involved in various real estate development, including shopping centers, office buildings, and apartment projects. More recently, Mr. Hawkridge has pursued his passion as an author, having recently published 4 books. While he grew up in New Jersey, and he spent a large part of his career working in New York City, it's okay, he now calls Nashville home. Please join me in welcoming William Hawkridge as Gateway Academy's 2022 commencement speaker. Mr. Hawkridge.
Thank you for the kind introduction. I really appreciate the opportunity to speak at your graduation ceremony. Upon reflection, I questioned if in fact I were the right person to deliver this address. First, perhaps a more recent college graduate, someone a little bit closer in age, might be able to relate better to this distinguished group. Second, I feel as if I have somewhat of a knack for writing. However, delivering a speech falls a little bit outside my comfort zone. So bear with me as I attempt to translate my writings into words. And I hope you got a good night's sleep last night, because I don't want anybody falling asleep here, because it's a distinct possibility. My best friend assured me that wisdom can go a long way in reaching graduates. I certainly hope so. This reminded me of a famous quote from Oscar Wilde, the Irish poet. He said, "With age comes wisdom." Throughout my many years, do I feel that age has helped me achieve a modicum of wisdom? Totally. Or as Rocky would say, absolutely. There's little substitute for the accumulation of life's experiences over decades to absorb various degrees of lucidity and, in some cases, actual wisdom. Confucius had an interesting take on wisdom. He said, by 3 methods we learn wisdom. First, by reflection, which is the noblest. Second, by imitation, which is the easiest. And third, by experience, which is the bitterest. Confucius came up with a few good ones here and there. Just for fun, here are a few other Oscar Wilde quotes. I can resist everything except temptation. True friends stab you in the front, not the back. And somewhat of a biblical reference, he said, always forgive your enemies. Nothing annoys them more. Now, today's speech will be a little different from a typical high school commencement address. Comments from a valedictorian, a class president, or even Maddie will strike a different tone and give a completely different perspective, as well they should. So here we go. I will attempt to impart a few of those elusive pearls of wisdom described earlier based on my age and experience. First and foremost, congratulations on your graduation from Gateway Academy. You are provided with a unique one-on-one learning experience which is completely absent in the typical high school or prep school. The next step you will be taking, in many ways, will be in direct opposition to the learning experience you had here at Gateway. Most colleges have a different approach to teaching and learning. You will be completely in charge of your own learning process. A highly structured environment with one-on-one learning will be changed to a large lecture format, and this will require considerable motivation and self-discipline to successfully manage the change. Easy for me to say. How much you learn will rest entirely on your shoulders. No doubt things have changed considerably since my days of college. However, there are a few tips that I'm planning to offer that hopefully will have stood the test of time. First, choose the best college for you. In your case, this has probably, no doubt, already been done, and there's no need for any real detailed discussion. However, I couldn't resist making a few salient facts about our troublesome educational system. The cost of a college education has spiraled out of control over the past decades. Costs of some $2,000 per year in my day are currently $80,000 at Princeton. Average cost for private schools, about $31,000 a year. The Ivy League schools, $80 grand. Recent studies indicate that an Ivy League education is not necessarily any better than any other college degree. If your dad's a legacy and will pay for your entire education at Harvard, go for it. The vast majority of us will never have this opportunity, and we certainly don't need it. Public universities have cost breaks for in-state students. This seems to offer the best value, best bang for the buck, so to speak. Schools like UVA, Ohio State, Penn State, Rutgers, University of Tennessee, they typically run around $15,000 or so for in-state students. The likelihood is that you'll do just as well by graduating from a good college as opposed to an elite school that costs a fortune. Someone graduating from NYU with a BA degree will do just as well in the New York job market as someone graduating from Columbia. If a student is forced to rely on student loans to underwrite his or her education, elite schools may easily be ruled out, even if by some miracle you gain acceptance on your own terms, given their absurd acceptance policies. The accumulation of massive student debt may well not be worth it. The Ivy League schools have massive endowments, yet they increase costs annually. Harvard, $53.3 billion. Princeton, $37.7 billion. You think everybody should be able to go to school and it should cost very little, but that's not the case. Like everything else in our country today, and don't even get me started, we must find a solution to out-of-control costs. All right, as McConaughey says. So once we start college, what should we do? Here are a few pointers. Hopefully they'll be of some help. Number one, attend class. Professors rarely take attendance, except for the first day to make sure you're in the right course. If you're not there, nobody really cares. It's up to you. Colleges are expensive. Don't squander the resources by skipping class. Show maturity and initiative by showing up each day, except for sickness or force majeure, an act of God. In the simplest of rhyming colloquial terms, get your ass to class. Take notes. Back in the day, we had separate notebooks for each subject and took copious notes during the lectures. Today, modern technology allows for the use of iPads, laptops. They accomplish the same purpose. Use key phrases to identify and remember the subject matter. Avoid fully punctuated sentences. It wastes time and allows you to keep up with the lecturer. Some students have been known to video the entire lecture on their Apple devices. Next, do the reading. If you read the assignments outlined in your syllabus, no problem. Taking notes will be easy and retention will be much greater. Everything will fall into place. Unlike the Socratic method offered in law schools, your teachers in these large lecture courses are not going to call on you to comment. This may change somewhat later on when you take smaller classes within the scope of your major. Regardless, there's no excuse to go into a classroom unprepared. Reading the assigned material ahead of class is the right course of action. If this does not happen in certain instances, and there may be many, and reasonable ones at that, go back and read the material as soon after class as possible. The reading together with your note-taking will provide clarification and reinforce your comprehension and retention. Then you'll be fully prepared for final exams. Next, set aside a study time. Just pick a time. Usually in the evenings is better. If you can do it somewhere between 7 and 11 p.m., that should do the trick. Get enough sleep so you can face the next day with vigor. If you find yourself in an environment that is distracting and interferes with concentration for study, often happens in dorms and fraternities and sororities, go to the library for solitude. Trying to study while knuckleheads are playing beer pong, it's not going to work. Find a solution if you are struggling in a class. You have some options here. Possible choices may be, particularly if you're having trouble in a certain subject, you may be able to drop that subject and choose another one. You probably won't face this situation, but you just know that the option is there if it is needed. Also, tutoring and other assistance is available. One trick that I used back in the day, we formed study groups with your friends, pick the smart ones, and then divide the subject matter into several parts. One student responsible for each section. Then get together later on and discuss the whole thing, and it'll become abundantly clear. You'll save time and improve your overall knowledge of the subject. This is a pretty good tip here. Avoid cramming for finals. Many a student who ignored the textbook reading and failed to study during the semester has been known to panic and try to cram all the material into a couple of days and nights. Bad idea. Pulling all-nighters in trying to pass a test is pretty risky business. You might get lucky, pass the exam, but your short-term memory isn't going to be too good on the subject. Prepare along the way. Your stress level will be significantly reduced by proper planning, and your results will be way better. Final tip, I'm sure you've all thought about this a little bit, select a suitable major. Now, many of you students are entering college with the idea of exactly what you want to study. The college you chose probably proves that point and has the curriculum that you are looking for. However, many enter college with no clue as to what they want to major in. This is not uncommon. It's easy, in some cases, just to pick a subject in which you think you can do well and which you feel comfortable. That's fine, but consider the next step. Will the major in that subject translate into a good-paying job, or for that matter, any job at all? Uncertainty about choosing majors is not uncommon. If you're unsure about your choice and future job prospects, throw in a few business-related courses to hedge your bet. Employers tend to look in that direction when making hiring decisions for prospects, particularly those majoring in the liberal arts. Courses in classics, philosophy, cultural anthropology, art history, music appreciation, these are great electives, but majors in these subjects may offer limited opportunities for employment later on, except for teaching, of course, which is fine if that's what you want. A recent study revealed that many college seniors approaching graduation expect starting salaries in the $100,000 range. This may be true for investment banking and law firms, but these usually require graduate degrees and 80-hour work weeks. Actual starting salaries are about half of that, maybe about $55,000 on an annual basis. Computer science and engineering, a little bit higher, maybe about $70,000. Now, much has changed since my college experiences, but these are a few pointers that if I'd known ahead of time, it would have made my transition a lot smoother. Most guidelines for speeches of this nature suggest that you minimize personal experiences. Well, I'll stick to that, except in a few cases. Now, high school was relatively easy for me. I had an ample time for studies as well as sports, particularly girls, and other extracurricular activities. Pretty much in that order. Good grades were easy to come by, but I was never prepared for the transition to college. I wasn't anywhere near as smart as I thought I was. As compared to high school, college was surprisingly hard. Hours of concentrated study were required to keep up with the subject matter, which was considerably more difficult. Also, the guy sitting next to me, way smarter than the high school guy sitting next to me. Made you really have to pay attention. It does become progressively more tenable as you go along, particularly after the first 2 years. Back in the day, we were stuck with what we call core courses, one of which was Western civilization, a history course. That can't be hard. Well, not so. It required serious textbook reading, copious notes, and didn't just span decades, but centuries. It was tough. Also, some other required courses in foreign languages and in sciences gave many a headache to a freshman student. Nowadays, many of these previously required core courses have been eliminated. It makes it a little bit easier. Regardless, the news is that it gets a lot better as you get acclimated to campus life. Once you begin taking courses in your major course of study, the load will be lightened and the learning becomes a lot easier. Now, while academics should always be at the forefront, college life offers many opportunities. You may elect to participate in sports, glee club, or a host of other activities. Make sure to enjoy the entire process of socialization offered in the college environment. Once again, college experience is totally different. You're in complete charge, and you alone will make your decisions. Partying and excessive drinking are prevalent throughout college campuses, particularly in fraternities and sororities. Be smart, exercise sound judgment, approach things reasonably. The Germans have a saying, alles in Mäßigkeit, everything in moderation. Okay, so what about this whole business about selecting fraternities and sororities? Now, fraternity life isn't for everyone, but for many it can be a significant experience. As you're no doubt aware, fraternities and sororities are a network of chapters at our colleges and universities throughout the entire nation. Unfortunately, they have been elitist and discriminatory in the past. Back in my days, it's sad to say, but blacks and members of the Jewish faith were routinely excluded. Not so today. Things have become much more inclusive and multicultural and far less discriminatory, thank goodness. Fraternities and sororities rush students during the selection process and you become a pledge. Many of you may know this. I actually didn't. It was all quite different to me. Princeton had eating clubs, a little bit different from fraternities, but pretty much the same thing along the line. One of the interesting things is we and my friends in fraternities, we all dressed for dinner each night. The typical uniform was a blue blazer, khakis, a white or blue shirt, and a regimental striped tie. I don't know if that's still the case. I tried to find out, but I couldn't really get much of an answer. I imagine it's much more relaxed these days. Now, many fraternities have been banned from campuses for violation of hazing rules, as well as out-of-control partying and actual physical destruction. All meals are eaten in the fraternities, and they have their own chefs, and the food is way better than the institutional food of the university. In addition, brothers have their own rooms and sleep at the fraternity house instead of on campus. This was different at Princeton. You didn't sleep there, you just ate there. You actually resided in the dormitories. Fraternities also perform civic projects each year for the local communities. They have mottos, handshakes, initiations, that are secret and confidential in nature, and you're not supposed to divulge those to anybody. Many of you may be familiar with this, some may not, but perhaps these few things will give you a little bit of a clue, because it's a big decision. Whether or not you join, that's solely your decision. Your friends will help you make that decision. The school you go to will help you make the decision. A study back in 2020, there are over 700 colleges that supplied data on fraternities, surprisingly, the national average, only about 20%. But this changes substantially. At Washington and Lee, in Virginia, for example, the percentage of fraternity members, 79%. That's considerably above 10. In contrast, TCU, SMU in Texas came in at about 43%. Here, close to home, is interesting. University of Tennessee, about 25% of students in fraternal organizations. But if you happen to go to Sewanee, 80%. So they vary considerably, and it'll be a choice that you'll have to make. A typical cost for a fraternity can vary, run about $2,500 a year. For some colleges less, others more. Enough about fraternities and such. There's one very important point that I really wish to impart to all of you. I can't emphasize this enough. During the entire educational process, undergrad as well as graduate school, if you go there, concentrate on forming your own ideas and beliefs. Don't allow professors, student teachers, or peers to tell you what to think or allow them to influence your decisions. Fight indoctrination and inculcation at every level. One of our fundamental concepts that is rapidly disappearing is the ability to discuss and exchange ideas in a civil and respectful manner. Even if you disagree with someone, try to see their point of view. That's okay. Engage in a vigorous debate, but do it in a civil and respectful manner. Stick to your guns. Be civil and make your comments without reprisal. The thoughtful exchange of ideas and viewpoints represents one of the most important aspects of our society. Now, politics is a taboo subject these days, but the fact remains that the complete breakdown of the dialogue in Congress, on both sides of the aisle, continues to be detrimental to our democratic process and to our republic. Unity and civility are things of the past. They've caused a virtual termination of political debate among the political parties, the opposing political parties. My first book, Constitutional Crossroads, Where Red and Blue Collide, tackles this subject in detail. To illustrate this very point in an academic setting, retired law professor Alan Dershowitz always encouraged debate with free exchange of ideas in his Harvard law classes, regardless of the position you took. Dershowitz pointed to one of his former students whose hand was up on the very first day, completely disagreeing with everything he said. He'd later identified that student as Texas Senator Ted Cruz, who he labeled as one of the best students he ever taught. The contrary positions espoused by Cruz were well researched and presented in a really well thought out manner and lauded by the professor, even though they were in complete contrast to his beliefs. According to Dershowitz, this type of exchange and competing interpretations should be the boilerplate for any and all academic discussions relating to the various topics covered in academia. Many of the changes and adjustments facing college freshmen have been enumerated here. Your college graduation speeches will be completely different, concentrate on totally different subjects. However, one of the most often repeated themes offered to college students involves risk-taking and failure. Most of our titans of industry point to their failures before their successes. Here are a few historical quotes that come to mind in this regard. Success is the ability to go from one failure to another without the loss of enthusiasm, said Winston Churchill. Now here's a good one. Never let the fear of striking out keep you from playing the game. Any guesses on this one? Here's a hint. His first and middle names were George Herman, better known as Babe Ruth. Now, a little off subject, but relevant to this theme of risk-taking and failure, is an interesting story from my past, which, if you permit me, I'd like to digress here slightly. Back in the 60s or thereabouts, I was invited to a luncheon by a small group of bankers with real estate tycoon William Zeckendorf Sr. This name's going to mean nothing to you. However, way back in the day, it was a big deal for me. You see, Seckendorf, through his company Webb & Knapp, became the largest real estate developer of all time. He bought and sold more property than anyone in modern history. He remodeled large sections not only of New York City, but Denver, Washington, Dallas, and even Montreal. He was a larger-than-life figure with very aggressive business practices. He had amassed the largest real estate empire in the world in the 40s, 50s, up until the early 60s, by underwriting his projects with syndicated equity from investors and high interest rate loans from banks. Seckendorf is said to have played a real-life game of Monopoly, but he lacked the funds to underwrite many of his massive projects. His flamboyance and real estate savvy resulted in a very successful track record, and this attracted a host of investors and lending institutions. They waited in line for his business. However, he never properly evaluated the risk factors attendant upon his real estate acquisitions and construction projects, especially with regard to how he was going to pay for these projects. The monumental debt he had accrued and finally caught up with him in 1965 over his extended and highly leveraged positions. Unfortunately, they exploded into bankruptcy for his company, Webb & Knapp, and for him personally. At the time, it sent shockwaves throughout the entirety of Wall Street. As the luncheon was coming to an end, one of the senior bankers asked Seckendorf to explain to me, the youngest and least experienced in the group, what caused his demise. Well, to the best of my recollection, some 54 years ago, he looked at me and simply said, "The reach was greater than the grasp." Now, this was a massively oversimplified statement and was very, very disappointing. He could have just as easily said he bit off more than he could chew. The use of a metaphor as an explanation was a defense mechanism to avoid an honest and descriptive response to a serious question. He never discussed his problems associated with the collapse of Freedom Land, which was a theme park located in the Bronx on a marsh, his failed attempt involving the construction of a General Motors plant, or his massive accumulation of debt to underwrite his various projects. Now, we all were well aware of his over-bridled expansion and characterized by his excessive leverage, so we all knew this was the cause for the demise, but we were kind of looking for some insight as to what was going on in his head at the time. Unfortunately, this never came, and it prevented the opportunity from being a true learning experience. In fact, it was far from it. It was readily apparent that Seckendorf's ego precluded him from providing a detailed account of his future. His subsequent autobiography proved this very point. He touted a detailed list of his accomplishments, but completely omitted any reference to the actual bankruptcy and financial collapse. So I guess this moral of this story is at least twofold. Be willing to admit your failures, put aside your ego, and learn from the experience. As the old adage goes, always get back in the saddle if you fall off the damn horse. Secondly, when taking risks, exercise prudence and common sense. Evaluate the risks that are acceptable and look at the pitfalls and make a determination of them in light of the prospects down the road. Sensible measured risks, performing due diligence, and careful consideration will work every time. Just never throw caution to the wind. And most importantly, identify and codify the manner in which you plan to financially underwrite your endeavors. The fear of failure never entered Seckendorf's mind, and his aggressive personality and overconfidence no doubt gave him the impression that his real estate empire was too big to fail. Maybe he could have been bailed out back in 1965 by the government, like GM and Chrysler back in 2008. Who knows? You'll be glad to hear that I'm coming to a conclusion. First of all, I wish to thank you for listening. It was an honor to address you. Hopefully, some of these tips will assist you in your transition to college life and perhaps beyond. Enjoy this graduation day and your entire college experience. Make your parents and your relatives proud. Being able to attend college is an opportunity not available to everyone. So use a combination of good judgment and common sense in making decisions. Have fun and study hard. It'll be worth it. Now, I will end where I began with a few quotes. One from Rudyard Kipling, one from Michelangelo, and sticking with the age-old theme, one from yours truly. Kipling said, "If you can meet success and failure and treat them both as imposters, then you're a balanced man, my son." Michelangelo had a slightly different take. He said, "The greater danger for most of us lies in not setting our aim too high and falling short, but setting our aim too low and achieving our mark." And for me, several decades ago, when stranded in a snowstorm, I offered this pearl of wisdom. The true test of a man is how he measures up in the face of adversity. Feel free to quote me. Thank you, good luck to all of you, and Godspeed.
Hello, my name is Joan Lenning. I am the learning specialist at our Nashville office of Gateway Academy. And I have the pleasure now of introducing the next part of our program, which is a very special part of the program. At Gateway Academy, we have the ability to say a few words about each and every graduate. And we have asked some of our teachers to come up and say a few special words. And to the graduates, when the teacher who is speaking about you mentions your name, you shall stand up, turn around, smile, wave, and then sit back down. Okay? And so we will get started right away.
Hello. I am here today to speak on behalf of President Penelope Doulis. If you'll please rise, our president. All right, you will forgive me. I do have a little bit of a situation in my throat, so don't worry. I'm very far away from all of you. And Penelope, come see me afterwards. I have something to make up for the oratorical fireworks that are about to ensue. All right. So, the Spear Danes in days gone by, and the kings who ruled them, had courage and greatness. We have heard of those princes' heroic campaigns. There was Shield Shefson, scourge of many tribes, a wrecker of mead benches, rampaging among foes. This terror of the hall troops had come far. A foundling to start with, he would flourish later on as his powers waxed and his worth was proved. In the end, each clan on the outlying coasts beyond the Whale Road had to yield to him and pay tribute. That was one good king. The first words seniors in my classroom often read, and while the insignia upon the gates of hell observed by Dante, "Abandon all hope, ye who enter here," might feel a little bit more appropriate, I always like to start on a high note. I'm sure Penelope would agree, descending through those tales of old and admittedly the tiresome pastiche of mansplaining heroes who inevitably must be confounded by strong women like a sea witch, Ophelia, Mary Wollstonecraft, and Elizabeth Lavenza, girl bosses all. So, speaking of which, I remember the first tentative steps Penelope took into my cubicle. 2 hours a day must have seemed like an eternity, though my impressions prior to our acquaintance were many, and I anticipated Penelope's presence with a certain level of excitement, something every teacher may experience when they know they are getting a complex thinker. The uncontested ruler of the Gateway clan, Penelope, much to Homer's approval, I am sure, had many things in common with that heroine of epic poetry. Kind to everyone, fair in their friendships, sought after for their advice, it was clear that as long as Penelope held sway, all was right in the kingdom. But I digress. Entering the classroom that fateful day, coloring book and stuffed animal in hand, most likely dreading the dry assignments ahead, I could tell that I would need to be especially charming. Not to be outdone, I of course busted out my Myths and Monsters Hero Journey premiere, sat back, let the video play, and she promptly pulled out the coloring book. All right, not to be outdone. Back to the drawing board. Perhaps a PowerPoint? All right. Every day would bring new challenges and questions because Penelope wasn't just doing classwork, she was questioning it. After a textbook assignment going over historical context for Anglo-Saxons and the evolution of the English language, she even greeted me with, "Can we just address the stupidity of the religious references in this textbook? Like, Christianization didn't fix anything." Okay, good point, good point. I had found a kindred spirit. And so as a teacher, I was introducing lessons on the more interactive side. And by that, I mean descending into absolute satire. The world has changed a lot since Hrothgar first needed a hero to handle Herod Hall's pest problem. The whys and the wherefores of British literature would seem an epic task, and I myself admit that some days were utter improvisation. But Penelope challenged everything and questioned everything. And bravo for that. I would think, all right, Frankenstein, the first Gothic tale of horror. Surely this will be exciting and challenging. But then I would receive the most in-depth response ever to a simple question about themes in Big R romanticism. One example of Penelope's intellectual Olympics, the exposition establishing the Frankenstein's adoption of Elizabeth Lavenza as a young girl. And I quote, "This entire chapter is Shelley pointing out the ridiculousness of misogyny and white privilege. When you have everything, you feel entitled to everything. So orphaned Elizabeth is an object, but an angel. Yet the monster is a demon. But they have the same past. They were both abandoned at birth, both victims of other people's entitlement." We are all monsters and angels. We should be proud of what makes us individuals, and Penelope taught me to be proud of what makes me an individual as a teacher. On a more personal note, I am not exactly the most gregarious person, and sometimes it's hard for me to form connections, and I think it's important that students understand that even as an adult, it's okay. It's okay to be lost a bit. It's okay to be a monster or an angel. Always be proud of who you are, and always strive to make those important connections because you never know whose life you're going to touch. I am certainly glad that I got the opportunity to learn from someone whose self-confessed homeboys thankfully became Hamlet, Grendel, and Frankenstein's unnamed monster, whom Penelope kindly decided to call Herman. Someone with a propensity for curiosity and a level of empathy far beyond their years. I thought I was getting a pupil, but I wound up with a friend, one who taught me something, and knowledge in this ever-changing world is the greatest currency to exchange. This must be how Merlin felt. So, the laboratories of learning in days gone by and the students who ruled them had chutzpah and cheek. We have heard of those pupils' rebellious campaigns. There was Queen Penelope, scourge of many textbooks, a wrecker of outmoded ideologies, rampaging against homework. This terror of the study hall had come far. An ingenue to start with, she would flourish later on as her star quality radiated and her worth, had no need to be proved because fierceness. In the end, each instructor on the outlying cubicles beyond that fickle Xerox had to yield to her and pay tribute. That was one good queen.
I'm Zach. I'm speaking on behalf of Maddie Gibson. The program was supposed to say Shaggy, but they didn't put that in there. So Shakespeare is credited with inaugurating 1,700 words into popularity in the English dialect. And I counted last night, and it was 1699. It was not 1,700. But similarly, over the past 2 years, Maddie has refreshed my vocabulary to include phrases like, what's popping, bonjour, living the dream, and awesome sauce, which is my favorite. I know it's cheesy to say that teachers learn from their students, but come on. I mean, that was much needed. Maddie's asynchronous phrases may not be culturally relevant yet, but they are correlated with her outgoing and inventive personality, which has an orbit of its own. When I was in high school, many of the students who demonstrated the greatest work ethic appeared unwell in other ways. I imagine them at home, hunched over a writing desk with parents minding each chunk of eraser confetti that fell on a perfect page. In contrast, Maddie's work comes from the soul, which is apparent in her well-rounded demeanor. The Stoics believed that one should experience pleasure and pain in perfect measure in order to balance the ups and downs of life. Maddie's work is that of a Stoic. She is measured and consistent while maintaining positivity that does not tire. Maddie is tuned in to a higher frequency than most. The most powerful quality of her thought is that she draws from an aquifer of passion. If there is any one trait that assures success and happiness in life, I have to believe it's this. You know, the word passion comes from the Latin word pati, which means to suffer or suffering. Therefore, I think it follows that practices of passion offer the lesson that great things come from hard work, determination, and of course, love. While many students become obsessed with grades, a college acceptance, or the attention of their peers, it is passion that should come first, and all else will follow. Most people seem to spend their lives in search of a purpose or an answer that will end their suffering. Ironically, it takes someone with true wisdom to recognize that the miles of strain stretched before us are actually the road to joy, and that pleasure is only a ledge from which we must fly. Maddie has demonstrated this awareness. She's a realist, she's earthy, grounded, but she is always reaching for the highest fruit in the tree. Next year, Maddie will be enjoying the gorgeous, sunny island life, the Rhode Island life, that is. And we all miss her sunny personality, lighting the dim chambers and corridors of the old Gothic Gateway Manor. The 2 years that Maddie has been in my class have passed so quickly that our earliest times seem like yesterday. And they, of course, say that time flies when you're having fun. Sometimes I get to worrying that Maddie's life may be racing before her very eyes. It is possible she may even surpass me in age within the next couple of minutes. Who knows? I mean, certainly she will surpass me in wisdom. Thanks for the great years. It was a pleasure to experience your presence in my class, and I speak on behalf of all of us at Gateway that it's been great to have you in the community. Rhode Island is extremely lucky to have your renewable resource of energy. They'll be needing it considering gas prices. Thank you so much.
Hi, my name's Rainier. I'm here to speak on behalf of Davis Johnson. those of you who don't know me, I am a math and science teacher here at Gateway, so I don't know if I can quite compete with the literary value of our previous speakers. That was very impressive, but I will try. Tall tales is a phrase that many of you have probably been familiar with. Usually this phrase is used in reference to stories with exaggerated elements that are presented in a factual manner. But for me, I always felt that this phrase spoke of stories that were just larger than life, stories that bring to life seemingly mundane elements and making them fantastical. Davis has always been a gifted storyteller. From the completely farcical, like he is better than me at chess or some other video game, which I'm here to tell you today is untrue, to the autobiographical, such as his previous summer at Wilderness Camp. Davis has always had a way of engaging with others through the act of storytelling. I have seen him use stories for many reasons, some to excuse himself from homework assignments, but even more to just bring people together and engage them. Today, Davis, you get to begin being the author of your own great story. No co-writers, editors, or others telling you how it should be written, other than, of course, the guiding hand of your parents, right? You get to begin anew and make a story all your own, right? Like any great story, there will be highs and lows. Lost my spot. Success and failures, triumphs and tribulations. But what matters most is how proud you are of the story that you're going to write. Author and novelist Graham Greene once said, "A story has no beginning and end. One arbitrarily chooses the moment of experience from which to look back from and from which to look ahead to." Remember that your own tale is your own, and you choose its beginning, end, and trajectory. An unsatisfied author can rewrite their novel much like anyone can reshape their own story in any way they wish. I'm very proud of the effort you've given here at Gateway, and you will certainly be remembered by many here for your care, humor, and good-hearted nature. But I think what all of us still at Gateway are waiting for is the story you'll bring back to us. The grand tale of adventures you're certain to have in the coming years, because in many ways, Davis, you are capable of things that are larger than life. You are here to write your own tall tale. Congratulations on your achievement today, your coming achievements that we may not be there for, and the amazing tall tale you've yet to tell. Thank you.
Let's improvise. I'll point at you and you should stand, okay? I got like a dramatic thing going. He is diligent and courteous, but above all, he has the decorum of a leader. It is rare to see someone so young who demonstrates true loyalty and moral judgment. And with this being said, it's hard to think of him as young. I believe his openness and motivation represent his alignment with principles of kindness and honor that far exceed average. I'm talking about Brooks. This guy gives me confidence that the next generation is in good hands. In my years knowing Brooks, I've come to know a leader. Brooks is compassionate and empathetic with others, while maintaining a drive toward worthy ambitions. He sets a great example and he unifies people through his actions. The past 3 years have challenged our concept of what it means to be a young adult. While previous generations enjoyed the luxury of walking to friends' houses after class, going on late-night voyages to diners, and catching the butterflies fluttering about first dates, our students had to band together in a much different way. And during this time, our school became a shelter from the storm. With hard work and considerable flexibility, students, teachers, and admin were able to conjure the community we were all yearning for. In an uncertain world, we were certain that we could rely on one another. There was a campfire feeling in the air. Fortunately, no alarms were set off, and a deep camaraderie was unearthed. I will always remember that feeling, and it was in this era I first observed Brooks' magnanimous treatment of his fellow students. Brooks's self-confidence and respect for others made him the older brother that many were looking for. Those who seemed distant had a friend in Brooks. Our elementary kids held him in high reverence. You may not even know that. I'm sure that all the while Brooks was having having to overcome stress and changes in his own life. He was hit with great limitations, and he shared in the instability around us, but somehow his positivity and strong will made him a symbol of effortless durability. He was a rock. On the surface, he may seem happy-go-lucky, but this demeanor doesn't come without the hard work of maintaining a good heart. For this, he deserves a great deal of credit. His courage was without expectation of reward in mind, but for those around him, he was an influential role model. I've come to find that this is the consistent state of Brooks' nature. When Brooks commits to something, it's serious, whether he's discussing the corruption of King Claudius, watching Dune for the 7th time, smacking a baseball at the third baseman, or engaging with someone introspectively. Brooks is an all-in guy. And while I know that he is a team player, I conversely understand that Brooks is following his own path without compromise. It's a determined mantra, the kind where you say, I'm going to follow the road that's in line with my heart, that Brooks has written with his actions. So Brooks, without further embarrassment or ado, I now must dub you Books Langston for your outstanding knowledge, performance, and wisdom. I was going to try to make a language pun from your last name, but I thought I would try to spare you. You've demonstrated a depth of honor in our year of study, and I wish you the best in your future endeavors. Thanks for being a great student and a good friend.
Can you hear me? Do these things move? So this might be dreadfully boring. I didn't come with quotes, but maybe I'll think about one at the end. I'm speaking for Nathan. In the middle of Nathan's senior year, his preferred math teacher departed. I don't think he was enamored by this event. And then he got me. That teacher told me this about Nathan. Oh, he's a good guy. I love him, and you will too. And that's what I experienced. I first learned out that he's an amiable and friendly guy. He always came into the cubicle smiling, or into the remote session, because I think probably fully half of our classes were done remotely. With a big smile on his face and a snack in his hand. And then it took a little while before math could be actually absorbed. Secondly, I found that he loves video games. When he was at school and he was not in class, he was on his computer and his face was absolutely shining. And I knew it was not because it was math on the screen or any other thing. I think it was a video game. But that was a lovely smile. Then he is also funny and speaks his mind. Do you know what he said about me in the conference this last semester? She nitpicks everything I do. Thankfully, I got the common sense to realize, well, that is exactly what I did. And over this semester, I actually saw this nitpicking bearing fruit. Nathan went from somebody who would hand me homework or tests that had numbers all over them, in any which order, and the only way I could make sense of it is to say to him, okay, come tell me what belongs to what here. In his last exam, it was ordered. Number 1, all the equal signs in place, The answer's at the bottom with nice little lines and an arrow. This is the answer. I thought, great, great, Brooks. That shows me you have the capacity to change. That's very important in all of life. I have also learned that he is very, very curious. In my subject, I saw that when we actually did some math that has an application to some science topic, he seems interested. And so his science teacher told me, yeah, that is his interest, and he would spend hours researching topics and actually get into quite a lot of depth with them because of just that's his interest, and he's willing to put time into that. Finally, I have to say, he is also quite distractible. And I like that. In our remote classes, I would be talking, and then all of a sudden he says, a bird just did that and that and that. And I think, oh, okay. So obviously, he was listening to me with half an ear, and the other half was paying attention to the birds outside his window. I think that is very nice. I love it that you are distracted by nature. Not distractible by nature, but distracted by nature. And so, Nathan, you said that you are interested in pursuing electrical engineering after a gap year. Use your gap year wisely. I hope you realize that dream. You're quite capable of doing that. 2 things I would like to leave with you. You're at a crossroads, and I would say this to all these students because all of these from Nashville, I've taught at some other point. You're at a crossroads. Each time, decide ahead of time that you will make a wise decision for your direction. What is a wise decision? It's the decision that helps you now and in the future and in the far future. You have to think ahead. And secondly, do the work needed when it is needed. It's called responsibility, and not one of us gets away from it. And then lastly, since everybody had quotes, I have to give you Marcus Aurelius. He says, remember, it is not the past or the future that afflict you, but always the present. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Taylor Ramsey, and I'm here to speak for Chase Fields. So the start of my speech is going to be remarkably similar to what Madeline said when she gave hers, and I promise that's a coincidence, but anyway. So this is actually my first time giving one of these graduation speeches, and I admit that I'm kind of nervous. After all, I want to try to have Chase end his high school career on a high note. So for inspiration, I thought back to my own high school graduation speech, delivered by our principal. He said something during that speech that comforts me now. He told us that no one actually remembers their graduation speech, just the one who delivered it, and maybe one part of it that stands out. And I can say now that time has proven him wise, because that is indeed the only part of his speech that I can remember. So that really took the pressure off. In all seriousness, though, I'm glad to be here today to say a few words about Chase. I've been working with him this year on economics, government, and personal finance, all things that, perhaps more than most other subjects, are meant to help prepare you to succeed in the real world. And I suppose that's what today is really about. You and the others gathered here today are making an important transition from adolescence to adulthood. All your lives, you've had this framework of people around you trying to prepare you for this moment to give you the tools you need to succeed. This includes academic tools like reading skills and mathematics, but it also includes other, less quantifiable things. I wish I could take credit for teaching Chase some of these things, but as far as I can tell, he developed a lot of them before the time we'd ever met. For starters, Chase has one of the most important qualities a person can possess, a curious mind. No matter what class it is, Chase is always keenly interested in knowing more. We'd spend huge chunks of our time with Chase asking questions, wanting to know more about the material. Perhaps the most important thing you can learn is that there's always more to learn, and so I hope that Chase never stops asking questions. Chase also arrived with a desire for self-improvement. In addition to wanting to know more about the material, Chase also showed a strong desire to get better organized and to learn how he could work independently. I sure wish I had shared that attitude when I was younger, and I'm glad to see Chase take these things seriously at such a young age. Every one of us can work to be better, and Chase is better for it to clue into this early. Perhaps most importantly, Chase came to us as a kind young man with a genuine desire to help others. Whether it's helping with the younger students on field day or just helping someone carry a heavy bundle through the hall, Chase always seems eager to lend a hand where it's needed. In a world with too many burdens, having someone to turn to can be the most important thing of all, and I am confident that Chase will be that someone for many people. So while I can take some credit, for teaching Chase about the bicameral structure of Congress or the production possibilities frontier, I can take no credit at all for the most important qualities that make Chase a good student. So I'll just end things by saying, congratulations, Chase. I wish you the best of luck in the next chapter of your life, and I hope that you find your success. As long as you keep a good head on your shoulders and a strong heart in your chest, I think you'll do just fine.
Good morning. I'd like to start off by introducing myself. I'm Mr. Dennis. I've been teaching at the Gateway Academy Brentwood location for a little over a year now. I say Mr. Dennis because I feel like the more I say it, the more I might get used to hearing it, because it can be a really strange feeling. It can be strange to accept a role as an educator. And I would add real quick that that strangeness is only amplified being here at Belmont University. I myself am a Belmont alum of the class of 2014, so it was not all that long ago that I was the flighty, long-haired music student who would have told you at that time that a future in which I was a teacher seemed both far less likely and far less glamorous than my inevitable future as a rock star. And yet here I am. And more importantly, here I am getting to honor and to celebrate one of my own students who is about to cross that ancient threshold of graduation, in this case, high school graduation. And that student is Brandon Hom. Now, I have had the distinct pleasure of teaching Brandon personal finance, or as I sometimes like to call it, what not to do with money, a subject I am an expert on. But by that, I mean, I've always felt that personal finance is a subject that any student, anyone, can benefit from learning. But very quickly did I learn that Brandon is not just anyone. As soon as we started the very first unit on basic economics, assets, liability, what gives something value, I found myself confronted with an intellect, an awareness, and yes, a cynicism, unlike anything I've ever encountered, let alone in someone who's just a senior in high school. To be frank, it challenged me in all the best ways. Here I was, thinking that our lesson on the Federal Reserve and monetary policy would be a slightly rosier diet version of what one might think of if they've been watching the last 6 months of news when they hear the words Federal Reserve or monetary policy. This was just a high school class after all. Try to be optimistic, I thought was my strategy. And yet, almost immediately, Brandon launched into this brilliant and insightful take on inflation, recession, and corporatism that took me aback. And I just remember thinking, yeah, okay, this is going to be a fun class. And this came to be the tone of the entire semester. With that said, over the course of our time together, I came to learn far more about Brandon than just who he was as a young and embittered American consumer. I learned about who he was as a person. I found that his brilliance, integrity, and wit went far deeper than just economics. I learned about his experience as a person on the spectrum of autism, and in turn, I heard about his belief that the world would be a much better place if it chose to lean on rather than to stigmatize and marginalize its most exquisite minds. Whereas I had already agreed with him on that, I saw the ways in which he proved this in his practicality, such as having already applied and been accepted to the University of Tennessee, Chattanooga, a decision he'd so thoroughly considered that he'd already thought through his living situation, meal plans, and chosen a major which he knew would yield a high-paying job and an occupational style which his personality would be well suited for. That major is electrical engineering, by the way. I also witnessed his giftedness in his uncanny ability to mull over an abstract and perhaps oxymoronic concept like corporate integrity to such a degree that I believe he could write a dissertation contrasting Warren Buffett with the unspoken crisis of microplastics, which is something I think he will get. In short, Brandon has proven to successfully have performed an act of alchemy. He's managed to turn that which society would incorrectly characterize as his liability into an asset both to himself and, I sincerely believe, to the world. With that, I would like to close my statement with a sincere congratulations to Brandon and to all the graduates on a huge achievement, one that you should be incredibly proud of and one that you should know we are all incredibly proud of you for. It is no small feat, and today, of all days, know that your hard work and perseverance do not go unnoticed. To Brandon, and to any of you who need to hear it, I have but one real wish for you. Though I have spent much of this semester and even this speech lauding the awareness and objectivity with which you experience and critique our world, a world that you and I both know can sometimes be an unjust, too far gone, and seemingly senseless place, it is my hope for you that you continue to recognize your own power within it. For though it is a wonder to be able to clearly see its many broken parts at such a young age, if one ever sees it at all, it is only part of your gift. You have the power to do something about it. You have had the courage to share with me the collision course you recognize the world to be on, and now you must have the courage to do what you do best and work to right it. And you are already doing that just by being the world's one and only Brandon Hom. It is okay to be cynical at times, but be not idly so, for I can assure you the value that you bring to this world is well beyond the fluctuations of the market, the machinations of the system, and the quantifications of a still long-haired personal finance teacher. You've taught me so much. It has been an honor to get to be here to say congratulations as you go off and bring to the world what only you can bring. You have been exceptional. Thank you.
My name is Regina Villaruiz. I teach math and science. I have the honor to speak on behalf of a very kind, intelligent, and warm student. May I present Myers Everett Hart. I had the pleasure of being Myers' chemistry teacher. I cannot tell you how much I enjoyed teaching him. Each class, Myers would greet me with, "Hello, Mrs. Villaruiz. It's nice to see you." He would end each class with, "Thank you for teaching me, Mrs. Villaruiz. I hope you have a nice day." It was clear he was such a sweet, bright young man. But there was something special about Myers. You could feel it. You may have seen him recently on the news. He was driving a rental car on the interstate. It suddenly goes up in flames. Blessedly, he and his girlfriend and another friend were able to escape to safety. All was lost in the car, except one precious item, the engagement ring Myers had bought for his girlfriend. He was hiding it in the car, waiting for the right moment to give it to him. Thankfully, the firemen were able to retrieve it. The box was destroyed, but the ring inside remained beautifully intact. Myers opened the box, and his heart stopped as he watched it glisten in the sun. It was more beautiful than he could have imagined. At that moment, a butterfly landed on the car. It was a sign. This was the perfect moment. Myers got down on one knee and proposed. This small ring did not succumb to the large, smoldering flames. It stood strong. It persevered. This is how I view Myers as a person. Soft-spoken and gentle on the outside. Strong, tenacious, and resilient on the inside. When Myers is faced with life's challenges, he addresses them with optimism, integrity, and with a quiet force of energy. Like the ring, Myers will remain steadfast. He will shine brightly, and he will always persevere. Myers, you are a precious diamond. Our chemistry lessons about spontaneous combustion seem to have a little more application than I had intended. But it gave us moments that we will always remember. I am grateful to have had you as a student, and I am so proud to watch you graduate today. Each person and animal, especially horses, are in a better place, having to get to know you. Myers, you will be an amazing husband, son-in-law, and perhaps a father someday. And you will do wonderful things in life. I'm so proud to know you, and I wish you the very best. Congratulations.
I'm going to try not to cry because I'm a big baby. But I have the honor of speaking for Mr. Cole Woods. Okay, so my name is Asia Johnson. I am one of the math teachers, high school math teachers at the Gateway Brentwood location. And yes, let's get on started. So this is also one of my first speeches. I feel honored that you chose me to do it. So Cole, let me start by saying I'm extremely proud of you. If nobody else has told you, I want you to hear it. I am so, so proud of you. I have watched you go from a hard-headed, sick of the world kid who is still finding and discovering himself to a young man who's still pretty sick of the world, but understands the reality of living in it. Through your time with me as a student, to you just popping in to do a fit check, tell me about the new shoes you bought, ask how hungry I am or what you should order from Chili's, to giving a much needed laugh that you might not have known I needed. I have enjoyed every second that I have spent with you, whether it was teaching or you just stopping by. Thank you for trusting that the few moments that I did fuss at you or get upset with you, that it was because I was trying to push you to where you needed to be and that where you were supposed to be. It was only because I wanted the best for you. I know that you're going to have a full, happy life with whatever your path takes you. Your jubilant spirit and kind demeanor will ensure that you will want for nothing and everything will come to you the way that you deserve. which you deserve it. You walked to my class during a point in your life where your consequences were catching up with your actions, and you had a true dislike of school and anything long term. And now, you are getting ready to go to college. You have moved into your own place, and you have a brand new outlook on life. And it has been a joy to watch that journey. Keep it together. While the stories were interesting that you told me, I knew that they were just temporary speed bumps in your life journey. So, since everybody's giving quotes, I got a last-minute one. Disney, of course. And this is for all of you graduates. Oh, yes, the past can hurt. But the way I see it, you can run from it or learn from it. Lion King, the OG movie, of course. So as you prepare, back to you, Cole. So as you prepare to get settled in your new apartment, in college, and wherever you're going, and things start to feel hard or get difficult, remember you have made it through 100% of your bad days. You defied others' expectations of you, and you have grown to be this wonderful young man. You did it. Congratulations. I love you bunches. Since I'm the last one, for all of my graduates, take those risks. Make those memories. Do the thing you never thought you wanted to do. You got it. You will look back on these memories that are about to happen in the next couple years, and they will stick with you for the rest of your life. Trust me. Whether it's college, tech school, military, or you just going to figure out what you want to do, make the memories. They're going to be worth it.
And now I get to announce the moment we have all been waiting for, the presentation of diplomas. I will remind graduates that once you receive your diploma to stay on the stage right there in front of the piano. So everyone will be lined up together. And we are ready to go. Penelope Sophia Doulis. Madeline Michelle Gibson. Davis Bailey Johnson. Brooks Alexander Langston. Nathan Ellsworth Werhane. Chase Jameson Fields. Brandon L. Ham. Myers Everett Hart. Cole Caden Wood. Class of 2022.
You may be seated. Before this wonderful celebration ends, we want to take a moment to thank all the families, the parents, and the guests today for coming to celebrate this momentous occasion with us. Graduates, your teachers, administrators, and families are beaming with pride. We feel so fortunate to have been a part of your high school journey. It has been fulfilling to see you to grow into the confident young adult that we see before us today. Please know that we are not saying goodbye, and we hope that you feel the same way. We expect to hear from you. We'd love to see you visit, and please know that we are always there to support you wherever life may take you. Parents, we feel blessed to have been a part of this journey. Thank you so much for sharing your children with us. Congratulations, class of 2022. We wish you all the best of luck in anything you pursue. Graduates, please stand. It is now my great honor to facilitate the final ceremonial moment. Graduates, move your tassels to the left side of the cap to signify the final crossing over from being a high school student to a high school graduate. Weekend. We will allow you to come up to the stage for pictures if you would like. Again, thank you for joining us. This has been a wonderful ceremony celebrating these beautiful young people and the beginning of their adulthood. Thanks for coming.